With all this talk about FBI corruption, the subject of intelligence agencies is back on the table, but it provokes a question about adjuncts that work in concert with them, like Facebook or Twitter or TikTok. So, would these be unintelligence agencies? Speaking of unintelligent, the United Nations, known for its unintelligent policies regarding planet Earth, says, to slow global warming, agriculture must change. This despite a recent World Bank white paper whose abstract says, record high food prices have triggered a global crisis that will drive millions more into extreme poverty, magnifying hunger and malnutrition, while threatening to erase hard-won gains in development. The war in Ukraine, supply chain disruptions, and the continued economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic are reversing years of development gains and pushing food prices to all-time highs. Rising food prices have a greater impact on people in low and middle-income countries, since they spend a larger share of their income on food than people in high-income countries. If this is true, why in the face of looming hardship and starvation is the UN, EU, UK, and a bunch of other nations in the NATO sphere closing down farms in the name of fighting climate change? The Netherlands has been much in the news with the government following World Economic Forum dictates in its war against farmers. 37% of farmers in the western half of the United States have been killing their own crops. England, too, has been prepping to pay farmers not to grow food. Consider this article, entitled United Kingdom to Embark on Agricultural Revolution and Break from EU Farm Subsidies. Payments will focus on environmental benefits rather than food production. In it, we read, under the bill, introduced to Parliament this week and expected to become law within a few months, farmers will be given subsidies not simply for cultivating land, the current EU system, but for delivering public goods. These include sequestering carbon in trees or soil, enhancing habitat for pollinator-friendly flowers, and improving public access to the countryside. To any sane person, it seems bizarre that the governments would be shutting down food production as the world is entering a potential famine. Former BlackRock portfolio manager Edward Dowd talks about the ramifications of global food shortages here.
What you said before, though, was very, very interesting about these food shortages, which, of course, the Russia-Ukraine situation has contributed to. But it's not just that. We've seen food distribution plants in the United States and all throughout Europe, chicken farms, tens of thousands of chickens killed, egg farms, eggs destroyed. So it's not just that this Russia-Ukraine situation is happening, and it looks like they're systematically destroying food distribution places.
So I've been following that, and I'm glad you brought that up. I was without that, it's still a problem. I mean, with just the Ukraine alone, lots of people in the Mideast, India, and Africa are going to die from the Ukraine situation. Here in the U.S., we have our own food supply, and it's pretty good. But the way to pinch that would be through distribution centers and then bottleneck it there. We were called conspiracy theorists a couple months ago for pointing this out, and then Tucker Carlson pointed it out, and then other people started to point it. This is a known fact. There's been too many coincidences of mysterious fires at big distribution centers and points and hubs where you can get food to people. And whether it's our own government or Chinese agents doing it, someone's doing it, and it seems to be a plan. And food prices are probably, going to double within the next 12 months. It's a disaster. Now, we'll be able to eat in our countries, but hundreds of millions of people in poorer countries are going to die. That's the sad thing about this.
So you think that Western countries will be less affected by this?
Yes, because especially in the U.S., we have our own. We export a lot of food. We have a lot of farms, a lot of ranches, so there'll be food. But if you live in an area like Africa where the population is big and you have to import a lot of food, you will have a problem. Any countries that import lots of food are the ones you need to worry about. That's where you don't want to be come next year, in a country that needs to import most of its food.
An insight into what's happening might be derived from Henry Kissinger's famous memo where he said, control food and you control people. Toward that end, there might be a larger geopolitical strategy in play whereby the NATO countries are collapsing places like Africa to dislodge the Chinese from the continent. According to the Epoch Times, the Chinese are making great inroads in Africa, and Western corporations may not like that.
China's influence in Africa is displacing the global position of the United States. This long game to subvert and dominate an entire continent is decades in the making. Now that effort is paying off with heavy debt for the nations in Africa and helping China become even more powerful at the United Nations, all the while harvesting the natural resources in the continent.
I mentioned in a previous presentation how, according to economist Adam Smith in 1776, when a nation industrializes, it now needs raw materials to make finished products. This inevitably places empires in conflict with each other for colonies. When the United States brought China into the World Trade Organization and helped them industrialize, it unwittingly created a competitor for itself on the geopolitical stage. Is the coming food collapse largely synthetic? Was it manufactured on purpose? And if so, is it designed to hit those countries that are becoming colonies of China? We'll have to see how this unfolds, but in the meantime, Americans start stocking up. The New American Magazine is now on Locals. It's a for-pay platform for like $5. It gives you access to extra content and allows you to support your favorite hosts. As I said before, think of it like throwing some coins into the cup of a street performer. Check it out at thenewamerican.locals.com.